Hi friends, today I want you guys to imagine that you are looking through a telescope and you are studying another planet. On this other planet, you see features that you think absolutely it had to have been created by intelligent hand. I feel like everybody would be just overwhelmed by that and want to go tell people. At least that's what I would do. I would want to go tell somebody. And this is what happened, actually. There was a time in American history when so many people, not just astronomers or astronomy enthusiasts, but just average people, truly believed that there were features on Mars that were created by intelligent design. Now, I know that there still are. It's still controversial, and I'm not saying that there's not any history of any intelligent design ever on Mars, but I just finished reading a book called The Martians. It's The Martians, the true story of an alien craze that captured turn-of-the-century America by David Barron. And it's absolutely a fascinating read. It really tells us where this idea or this history of people being so interested in Mars came from. And it truly is a time capsule of human imagination and hopes, but also anxieties. It's really just a wild chapter in American history. In this story, we are introduced to several famous figures from the time period. This is really late 1800s, early 1900s, and the main person that we're going to talk about in this book is Percival Lowell. And he was a very wealthy, I guess you would call him a gentleman astronomer, because he was not employed as an astronomer. He was educated, but he funded all of his endeavors by himself. So he truly had the freedom to study whatever he wanted because he was absolutely wealthy enough to afford it. And what Percival Lowell did is he took his telescope to Arizona and went out into the desert and started studying and mapping Mars. And what he found on Mars was what he believed to be canals. These canals were perfectly geometric shapes with straight lines that just covered the Martian landscape. And he became obsessed. I guess you could call him an influencer of his day, being that he was very wealthy. He was always in all the social papers, and mainly the yellow press picked it up. Now, these are the newspapers and magazines that really enjoy sensational stories, but they really did sell. People became fascinated with the story. Something about the way he described them as being a civilization very much like ours, and they were on an old and aging and dying planet, and they were struggling for survival, and they were building these canals to try to get precious water to all the inhabitants. People romanticized this. They became obsessed as well, and it's just a fascinating story. I don't know how many times I'm going to say the word fascinating in this video, but it really started to be that people started reflecting what is going on in their own lives onto these Martians, these imagined Martians. So, for example, people really started wanting to contact Mars. So people were imagining that they were trying to contact us as well. And they would look up at Mars and they would see 3 lights in a triangular pattern. And they decided that that was a signal from Mars to us. And of course, if you think about it, 3 points of light, you can always connect them together into a triangle, right? So it's really interesting to see how people became fascinated with Mars. And he really was portraying them as us. People saw them as humans. People saw them as really inventing things along the lines that we would invent and struggling in the way that we would struggle with the same kind of things. And somebody else was listening, and that was H.G. Wells. And honestly, I read this book right after I finished reading The Martians. I think these are an excellent pairing together. And honestly, I got this recently It was free on Amazon for Kindle. So if you have a Kindle, you can download it for free. It's really interesting because H.G. Wells comes in and he's looking at the society. They really say that art reflects the culture, and it really does, because when you are reading The Martians, you learn the history, you learn what's going on in the time period, and then when you pick up H.G. Wells, you can see that. You can see exactly what you're learning about in the history reflected in the book. H.G. Wells comes in and he sort of answers Percival Lowell. Percival Lowell says, well, what if they're up there? There's a civilization there. And H.G. Wells comes in and says, all right, let's say there are Martians up there looking down at us, trying to communicate with us. What makes you think that they're going to be so eager to be these wise teachers? And he says, well, you put them on a dying planet. Maybe they're going to be looking at us with envy. Maybe they want what we have. And he creates this story that is absolutely terrifying. Now, in the past, I have watched War of the Worlds. I watched the classic movie. I believe I saw it when I was in high school or something. And then I also watched the 2005 version, the Steven Spielberg version, and I enjoyed both of them. So I would say I sort of knew what to expect from War of the Worlds, but honestly, it was still really good and really tense. And these aliens that came, we have H.G. Wells portraying them as very different. So while Percival Lowell's aliens were humanoid, they look like us, and they have the same sort of drive as us, these aliens, the first thing we notice is that they don't look like us at all. So he created this alien creature with this really big head. And you know how in popular culture we have the big head alien with the big eyes, the little mouth, and the skinny body? H.G. Wells just took that completely away. It's not humanoid like that at all. It's a head with legs. And the legs are really weird, kind of tentacle things. But you see, they evolved differently from us. They don't have digestive systems the way we do. They're all intellect, no emotion, and just legs. So in this story, we're envisioning these aliens as drinking blood for survival because they don't have like this whole digestive process. And we're creeped out by that. But H.G. Wells also reminds us that we eat the flesh of animals, and another creature from another planet who doesn't do that might find that disgusting. So that's the first difference, completely alien. So then we've got this idea going on in the world that the aliens are going to try to communicate with us. They've obviously got sort of similar technologies as us if they have canals going on Mars. So H.G. Wells comes in and he's got these tripod creatures. They are not based on the wheel at all. In fact, the entire technology that the humans see of these Martians, there's no concept of a wheel in there. And that's one of our early inventions, the wheel. We always say don't reinvent the wheel because to us, it's like the most natural thing to have is to create a wheel. But there's not really a wheel structure in nature. And H.G. Wells points out, why would they have any inventions the same as ours? And it's really interesting to think about that because in this book, you really do see that people are really naive. They're trusting this thing is on Earth. It lands. It doesn't really land. It's kind of flung and hits the Earth because back in the time that War of the Worlds was written, we didn't have flight yet. I mean, it was invented a few years later, but so the Martians being sort of the same as us as technology, they were flung here. It's interesting to imagine that, to think about how somebody from that time period would imagine technology. And you can see that in this book. And that's another thing that makes it fun to read. These things are carrying ray guns and they're walking around on the planet and they're flung here. So the humans, of course, being trusting that they're powerful and strong and can defeat anything, don't even really consider that what's in this capsule is not going to be a humanoid being like us. And when it comes out and it's very destructive, it's very surprising. And just sudden to the humans, to the people of the earth. So we've got that. You see the naivety of the humans and the shock. And I kind of think that's what would happen, because even though we have this idea of aliens and we, have imagined so many different things in different scenarios, I think the actuality of it would be truly shocking and truly horrifying. And, we do have this sort of vanity that we feel safe on our planet, and why do we feel safe? Because nothing has ever happened. Doesn't mean nothing can happen. And that's what H.G. Wells is asking us to think about. And when you read this book and you see, just after having read history about the time period, you can truly see the hopes and the fears of the people coming through in this book. And it's like almost a satire or a mirror pointed up at us, telling us to kind of look at ourselves. And it's kind of in a satire way, but also in a cautionary tale. It's just warning us not to be too comfortable with our position, So it's really a fun read, and I really enjoyed it. So going back to The Martians, this one, it's introducing us to the figures of history. It's introducing us to the culture and the time, popular culture. And also it's kind of reminding us that what science and invention is about is intelligence and discovery, but also hope. And our drive to learn things really comes from hope and imagination as well. So, the idea of dismissing people who have this belief that maybe there's life out there. I mean, I know that there's a lot of inclination to do that. Somebody says they saw something or they believe in something, and the idea is to just kind of brush them off. But it's hope like that drives curiosity, that drives science and invention. And I think this book is a good reminder of that. It's fun. It's a great read. You learn a lot. So if you're someone who likes to read nonfiction, I definitely recommend that you pick up The Martians by David Barron. If you're interested in sci-fi history or just popular culture, this is a great book. If you really only like to read fiction, then definitely go ahead and pick up H.G. Wells, The War of the Worlds. Both of these books are great. And like I said, I'm going to recommend that you read this one first and then this one, so that you have the experience of being familiar with the time, and then this one to see what's reflected back, and just also to enjoy the read, because it's very fast-paced, very tense, very fun. And before we go today, I want to ask you guys to leave in your comments any of your favorite alien books or even alien movies, because honestly, that's what scares me. My view is more along the lines with H.G. Wells. I don't expect aliens would be interested in teaching us anything. I am very much afraid of aliens if they ever come here. I have a very War of the Worlds attitude towards them. The idea of it scares me. The unknown of that scares me. And yeah, I have an alien book on loan. Well, it's on hold at the library, so when that comes in, I'm going to read it, and I will post a review on it. This one I'm going to take back to the library today, so I remind you guys, support your local libraries, and let me know some good recommendations in the comments. Thank you for watching today.